I'm sure you've heard this question a bunch of times in the last week or so, whether we could see a recession before the next election. There is a new survey out showing 38% of economists do see a recession, but not until after the election. As you see there, the other side of it, 34% see it before. So we'll figure it out, I guess. It's tough to get that timing right. That's the prediction business. Democratic candidates hoping for a downturn. Certainly some sound that way. The question is whether they get that, what it means, and again, when it happens. Fox News contributor Liz Peek is here with us in the studio alongside Democratic strategist Kristen Hawn, and the former Trump transition team member Ken Blackwell joins us. Ken is in Washington. And did you make anything, Liz Peek, of the the timing of this survey? It shows you how split people are. It's almost impossible. We'll go back and call people wrong afterwards. Like,
yeah, 38% of economists and 100% of Democrats are hoping for a recession,
right,
or thinking there will be one. Look, we had an inversion of the yield curve. That is, as you well know, subject to lots of different interpretations, but it did happen. And around the world, yields have plunged to levels we've never seen before. In Denmark today, I read, they are actually paying you to take a mortgage out on your house. I mean, this is kind of the real manifestation of this bizarre thing that's happened.
They could sell Greenland and raise some money that way, too.
Which I actually think is a great idea. But look, some strange things are happening in Germany. But actually, last week I talked about Germany coming up with a fiscal response. Yeah. It is a country that can do it. Their deficit runs about 60% of GDP. They're in a position to boost their economy, which would boost the EU. So we have to see some of that stuff happen, and I think it will. So the answer is we may or may not see a recession. It is by no means a lock.
I guess the political question, and we'll go to you first, Kristen, on this, and then get Ken involved in it, is, it was one thing everyone would say, oh, Democrats are rooting for the economy to turn south, whatever the case may be. But if you're in an environment of slowing growth right now, how do you look at it? Do you look at it as it opens up an attack line against the president maybe that wasn't there, where the economy was his strength, and now instead of just going after him on the tweets or the personality, we should go after him on his economic policies? Is that kind of a change of course here the last few months or weeks for the Democrats?
Yeah, and I will say, as a Democrat, I'm presumably one of that 100%. I am certainly not hoping for a recession.
Right, not rooting against the country. Right?
You don't want to root against the country, and I work with a number of members of the House who also are rooting for the American workers. But I do think that there's a political calculation here. Heading into the election, if the economy does hit a downturn right before the election, it could have an impact on Trump. When I'm originally from Texas, and when I go back home and talk to people who are Trump supporters, they talk a lot about, I may not like the mannerisms and some of the things he says, but I'm doing well right now.
Oh, he's making that argument, Ken.
Yeah.
Like that's it. In the last rally, I guess it was, the last couple, he said something like to the effect, hey, you may not like me, or you could love me, you could hate me, but you, quote unquote, have to vote for me. So is that how the election's going to be decided here in terms of the economy?
Look, Connell, a recession is always coming.
Right.
What the politics of this is, when folks are giving 3 cheers for a recession, that's problematic. As a former mayor, I know how recessions impact middle and lower income families. They're really, really tough. But if you take a look at consumer spending, it is still strong. And as you know, that accounted for about 2/3 of the economic growth, in our economy. This president actually got $2 to $3 trillion off the fence working in our economy, and accelerated growth and labor participation. So I think there are strong indicators that we're going to push through this. And so I think a recession will come, but it will probably come sometime in 2021.
That's the thing. Timing's everything. I want to move to the other side for a moment, politically at least, and talk about Elizabeth Warren. I can already hear some of the responses as I tell you guys that Elizabeth Warren was at a Native American presidential forum in the state of Iowa addressing controversy over her claims about her own ancestry. And here's what she said.
I want to say this. Like anyone who's being honest with themselves, I know that I have made mistakes. I am sorry for harm I have caused. I have listened and I have learned a lot, and I am grateful for the many conversations that we've had together. It is a great honor to be able to partner with Indian country, and that's what I've tried to do as a senator, and that's what I promise I will do as President of the United States of America.
back to the panel on this one. Liz Peek, you get to go first.
Well, look, I give her high marks for showing up there. I think, on Twitter, there was an awful lot of commentary that this is a pretty ironic place for her to be. She's been dishonest about this a long time. This is not something she did once or twice. She lied about this consistently to boost her career, and I think people do hold it against her. But look, she's doing pretty well on a whole bunch of other things. So
well,
I don't think it's a deal breaker.
I find that part of it, Kristen, to be very interesting, is that sometimes we assume people are going to react one way, in this case Democratic primary voters, to an issue, and you say, when this came out, I would have thought this issue, because of the honesty that Liz brings up, would have hurt Elizabeth Warren's candidacy more. And while she seemed to fade a little bit at the beginning when it was really up in the news, boy, she's come on here lately, and it seems like people forgive or forget or don't. I don't know.
And I think being honest and saying, I've made mistakes, I think people like that in candidates. And I think that she's taken. It's interesting to see how many of Bernie Sanders supporters she seems
What's going on there?
taken over. I think that for whatever reason I think that Bernie's time has passed. I think that he's. He was the candidate maybe that they supported last time, but she's the other voice in the party that kind of takes that, has that same, the group of policies, because they're not that different.
He's sort of a one-trick pony, right? Yeah. I mean, he's got one thing he talks about. She's got a million things.
Yeah,
she's
and he doesn't.
About,
and he's his list of accomplishments for all the years he's had in office is laughable.
The other thing, Ken, which we know is, say in a world where Elizabeth Warren is the nominee, which now is not, that far-fetched, she's going up in the polls, and if at some point, to Kristen's point, there's no Bernie Sanders there, and she takes those votes. We know how Donald Trump would go after her. We know exactly what President Trump would say about her. I mean, I always ask guests that are kind of agree with the president on this, would he be licking his chops over a matchup with Elizabeth Warren as opposed to Joe Biden?
I mean, it will be classic. It will be classic socialist rhetoric versus a free market president that has actually made the free market work for American workers and families. At the end of the day, Elizabeth Warren is going to have the albatross of her big lie hanging around her neck. And the reason for that is that she's actually running for the nomination in a party that are the major producers of identity politics. And as a consequence, as opposed to talking about e pluribus unum, from the many one, she in fact is going to be saddled with a campaign that is divide and conquer and playing one race and ethnic group against the other.
Well, whatever side you're on, if she's been able to avoid the primary, she'd hear about it in the general election on Twitter and everywhere else every single day. All right, guys, thank you very much. We appreciate it from all three of you.